Hello, thanks for stopping by and taking a look at mindsets in health professions, a scoping review. I'm Cheryl Williams, Associate Professor, Graduate School of Nursing. Welcome to Research Day 2021. I'm pleased to announce that I was able to publish in association and collaboration with my colleague Lisa Lewis from Duke University a scoping review of mindsets in health professions education, which will be published, I think, this month in Nursing Education Today. The abstract reads as, a growth mindset model has been linked with enhancing academic success in college students. A scoping review was conducted detailing evidence of the growth mindset model's application in health professions. 7 databases were searched, including a hand search. 1,296 articles were reviewed. Inclusion-exclusion resulted in 22 articles from various health professions. The study demonstrated that fixed mindset student learners may avoid constructive feedback, hide errors, and express negative maladaptive behaviors which threatens learning. To cultivate an adaptive, lifelong learning health professional, the growth mindset model shows promise and should be integrated into the curricula. So, background. Dweck's growth mindset model is an academic success model which has been utilized in many disciplines. What we wanted to know is what is the prevalence or influence of the growth mindset model in health professions education? So what is a fixed and growth mindset? So Carol Dweck developed this academic mindset model a few years ago, starting out at Harvard in the 80s, and now she's at Stanford. Has become internationally well known for this model. Basically, in the general population, not students specifically, but general population, 40% are fixed mindset and 40% are growth mindsets, with 20% sort of falling in the middle, known as mixed mindsets. I prefer to say not yet growth mindset. But fixed mindset individuals believe that they are born with the intelligence that they have, and it's innate and it cannot be potentiated. They tend to endorse performance enhancing performance goals. In other words, they have to be the best, the brightest, the quickest, and the fastest. And if they're not able to do that, then they'll tend to avoid adversity. They also, because they feel that this innate intelligence will allow them only to be something or not, this binary thinking, they often will not exhibit high levels of effort because in their mind, they either have it or they don't. And fixed mindsets display their competence. They have to, as I said, be the best and the brightest. And they take their perceptions of competence from their peers. In other words, they're normatively appraised. So they often refer to their competence as how their peers perceive them. In fixed mindsets, a typical attribution is, girls can't do math, so how do you think I could do math? Or the teacher did not do this, or the teacher did not do that. They often do not take responsibility for their own learning. And frankly, they don't remediate. They're not likely to remediate. Growth mindset students, on the other hand, do believe that intelligence is malleable through persistence, effort, and hard work. They tend to adopt multiple goals. They can adopt performance goals, avoidance goals, but generally, typically endorse what we call learning or mastery goals. They are much more concerned about their development over time. Competence is developed over time, and they tend to utilize learning or mastery goals. A typical attribution of a growth mindset individual is, I have not learned that yet. And we'll talk about not yet, very important component in the cultivation of growth mindset. And yes, they do remediate, which means that we can foster and cultivate a growth mindset model. Methods. After all, this is a scoping review. A scoping review is an appropriate approach to describe the quantity and types of literature on a topic and to identify gaps in the research. This scoping review examined the growth mindset model in health professions education. Its framework was based upon Arski and O'Malley's and expanded on by Levesque. So the Arski-O'Malley model has 5 important steps: development of a research question, identification of relevant studies, what material is included or excluded, charting the data, then finally collating, summarizing, and reporting the results. So the research questions for this study were, how has Dweck's mindset model been applied in the education of health professionals? Does the mindset model offer academic success in health professions education? What gaps exist? And what future studies are needed? Seven databases were searched. The Medline, CINAHL, they're listed here. Additionally, both authors conducted a hand search of the reference lists of pertinent articles, in other words, backtracking, to give us a total of 1296 articles which were screened. 27 ultimately were reviewed for this study. The search dates for inclusion and exclusion were 1995 to 2019. The studies must have cited Dweck's mindset model. If we did not have Dweck as a core component of the study, then mindset could be interpreted in many other ways. Only health profession students were included, no postgraduate studies. As is typical in a scoping review, the type of article was not limited to empirical or qualitative research studies. It also included gray area, including editorials and essays. This is often the choice for review. Scoping review is often the choice for areas that have not been well substantiated quantitatively or qualitatively. The search was limited to English language articles because the growth mindset model can be interpreted differently in various cultures and countries, and the context might be lost in translation. Fourth stage, charting the data. All citations were screened and interviewed and reviewed independently by both researchers. Then we got together, Lisa Lewis and I got together, we reread and discussed citations and articles that we may not have initially agreed upon and came to a consensus of what to include or exclude. In the fifth phase, descriptive data were compiled, including the type of article, whether it was an empirical study or an essay, specific disciplines that were found to be prevalent in the health professions literature, and then methodologies, outcomes, and key findings for each. So what do we find? Results. In the health professions education, we largely found these 5 disciplines were involved in thinking about and or possibly even studying the growth mindset in terms of student influences in student learning. The veterinarian school, physicians, pharmacies, nursing, and physical therapy were among the disciplines that we found in the literature. And they were from the United Kingdom, Australia, Canada, and Japan. An important consideration is that many of the articles, 13 out of 22, were editorial or contemporary discussion papers. They would explain the model conceptually, but very few empirical studies. Only 5 empirical studies. 3 mixed methods, and 1 literature review. So then we identified themes. One of the major themes in this scoping review was the concern for mindset endorsement, goal orientation, and professional development in health professions education. Bach and Tunison discussed how goal orientation was linked with mindset endorsement and the implications for medical education. Tunison and Bach described how fixed mindset learners were more performance goal oriented, much like Dweck's conceptual model supported, while growth mindsets endorsed more long-term mastery or learning goals. Students entered medical school as fixed mindsets, which medical school further perpetuated the model, fixed mindset model, with competition for grades, placements, high-stakes testing, and skill development. The medical faculty feared that a fixed mindset medical student may not see the need to look beyond exams and skill development competencies to master or develop long-term competencies, i.e., not become a lifelong learner. They were also concerned, Tunison and Bach, that teachers are both oftentimes instructors and evaluators. The authors described how the role of the teacher and evaluator might perpetuate the fixed mindset, since fixed mindset students might be reticent to ask for direction or feedback. They recommended the shift towards the growth mindset model, which favors remediation, cultivates constructive feedback, and fosters adaptiveness. Teachers' mindsets may color their students' evaluations. Fixed mindset teachers might believe that investing, quote, quote, investing time and effort in helping the fixed mindset learner change may seem less worthwhile, end quote, since many fixed mindsets do not believe that their intelligence is malleable. They believe that you either have it or you don't. You can either become a nurse or not become a nurse. There are people to become nurses and people not to become nurses. Alternatively, a growth mindset teacher as an evaluator might, quote, be more likely to provide supportive feedback, including advice on how to bridge the gap between observed and desired levels of performance, end quote. High stakes testing engendered the fixed mindset. In at least 4 of the medical articles, faculty were concerned that the high stakes testing perpetuated the fixed mindset mentality. There was much concern to increase formative clinical coaching means. Konopasek stated that fixed mindset students would be more likely to hide errors, deny uncertainty, and view feedback as punitive and to be avoided. Konopasek described the importance of developing growth mindset doctors as opposed to those of the fixed mindset, since growth mindset clinicians are more concerned with mastery and lifelong professional development. Again, a key component of this study. The power of not yet in formative evaluation clinical coaching. I spoke earlier about the power of not yet. Not yet invites remediation, and since fixed mindsets don't like to remediate, the cultivation of remediation and the cultivation of the growth mindset, it can often be fostered by this consciousness raising not yet. Ricotta, a faculty development program at the Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center here in Boston, described in an editorial how one hospital, quote, the hospital, quote, adapted faculty development programs to encourage clinical coaching by incorporating the growth mindset theory, end quote. The medical theory faculty subtly integrated the term not yet into clinical coaching. The educators detailed how to properly praise nursing medical students for instilling a growth mindset, praising for process, praising for perseverance, trying other ways of study, versus nouns like intelligence or natural talent. Students who endorsed the growth mindset mantra of not yet saw medical training not solely as performance-based, but often as a process of constructive, progressive learning journey. Fixed mindsets are not as likely to report errors. Pharmacy educators, pharmacy faculty sought to think about whether fixed mindsets may not report errors. Klein et al. Described how the fixed mindset pharmacy trainee who commits a medical error would, quote, blame a lack of innate ability for the error, and they may want to protect his or her identity by deflecting blame, justify the errors, redefine them as non-mistakes, or blame other colleagues. This deflection of self-responsibility, end quote. The researchers conceptualized that a fixed mindset might be less likely to report errors, and perhaps moving to a growth mindset model would improve reporting patterns. Again, this was conceptually, not empirically studied. And then fixed mindset students tend to worry more. The veterinary faculty found that there's a high incidence of mental health issues within veterinary students at any rate, so they looked at it from a perspective of mental health. And Bostock conducted a mixed methods approach utilizing survey data and focus groups in 136 fourth-year veterinary students. And the focus groups revealed that fixed mindset students often feared failure, feared other students' opinions of themselves, that normative appraisal, and saw teachers as intimidating and obviously to be avoided. However, growth mindset students were less anxious and perceived their upcoming clinical rotation as a challenging learning experience, focused on improving themselves, and saw teachers as future colleagues. discussion. Little empirical work exists examining how the growth mindset model influences student learning. Much is just conceptually described. For instance, Williams, myself, introduced the benefits of Dweck's mindset model in a top-tier nursing journal in 2018 and then again in 2020. Again, because there were no empirical studies done at the time in nursing education, I had to expound upon it conceptually. So I did that by expounding on how nursing faculty need to invite remediation and moving students, the need to move fixed mindset nursing students towards the growth mindset continuum. And then in my third article, an essay and allegory depicting a fixed mindset and growth mindset student, I detailed through case studies how mindsets can influence student learning. And in all this way, I was able to conceptually describe mindsets' influence in nursing education. But again, nursing's contribution to the health professions education believes, as with the other health professions, that we need to explore the growth mindset model integration. But again, little empirical research exists at the time of the scoping review. So many studies pointed to the detriments of fixed mindset health profession schools. Students citing competitive high stakes, high stress nature of health professions, school environments were drivers for the generation and sustainment of fixed mindsets. In 22% of the studies discussed, the need for fixed mindsets to be right at all times and fearing failure would lead to less disclosure of errors. In at least 32% of the studies, authors were concerned that fixed mindsets perceive constructive feedback negatively, which could cultivate negative maladaptive behaviors. And propagation of growth mindset clinicians may positively contribute to better patient outcomes through ongoing professional development and lifelong learning. Limitations. A key limitation of this scoping review concerns the final number of articles studied. While we did search 7 databases and also did a hand count, more articles could have shaped our findings. We did not include dissertations or master's theses. And another potential limitation relates to the search terms utilized, as the term mindset can often be misinterpreted. However, we did start with nearly 1,300 articles to include all possible combinations in this scoping review, and do feel that it was rather extensive. Implications: more empirical and even inferential studies which could predict the mindset model with effect sizes in health professions education needs to be done, and particularly in nursing education, which I'm working on currently. So I just want to say thank you and goodbye. Here are some of my recent articles on mindset in nursing education. And for other scoping review references, because I think we have at least 40, please feel free to contact me at cwilliams2@salemstate.edu. Thank you very much.